Okay, so the tools and frameworks that I'm going to teach you today, I truly believe should be taught in like every third grade class at some level, because these are things that every human being should know. They are so foundational for good mental health, and unfortunately, most people never learn this. So today I'm going to teach you a basic framework for mastering your body's stress response. And this has the potential to transform not only your mental health, but probably your physical health, and possibly even your life. So let's dive in. My name is Abby, and I'm a licensed professional counselor who specializes in trauma, stress, and the mind-body connection. This is episode 3 in a series on the nervous system, and if you missed the first 2 episodes, they will be a little bit helpful in understanding everything we talk about in this episode and the other episodes moving forward, so I'm going to link those in the description below. I am also the creator of Song, which is not just this YouTube channel, but it's also a method for nervous system regulation that uses science, singing, and somatics to help you feel your best. So if you want to learn more about that, I will also send some helpful links in the description box below. But for now, let's dive in. So the first 2 episodes in this series really focused on nervous system dysregulation. And for a very quick recap, nervous system dysregulation is when your body's stress response falls outside of the optimal zone. It's kind of a stress response gone haywire. And chronic nervous system dysregulation, so nervous system dysregulation that happens over and over again or for a prolonged period of time, is a very common root cause of many common mental health conditions, even some physical health conditions, and it's a common reason why people just aren't feeling their best these days. So there are 3 primary types of dysregulation that we've talked about so far in this series. Number 1 is hyperarousal. So that's also called stuck on high. And you can think of this a little bit like the fight or flight response. So hyperarousal is associated with high energy symptoms and emotions, things like anxiety, stress, irritation, feeling antsy, feeling on edge, that kind of thing. Its opposite is hypoarousal or stuck on low. That's associated with low energy symptoms. So here we might feel more depressed, we feel lethargic, we feel exhausted, we might feel disconnected, numb, dissociative. It's like a collapse response. And then we have a third response that we call the freeze response, which is a combination of the first 2. It's when you feel tired but wired. It's those high energy symptoms and those low energy symptoms kind of canceling each other out so that you feel stuck or frozen. Now, there is so much more that can be said about all of those, and if you want to hear what I have to say about all of those, please watch the first 2 videos in this series. But for today, we're going to leave it at that. Now, the first step toward regulating your nervous system is understanding which state of dysregulation you're currently in. Once you know what state you're in, the second step is to select the appropriate tools to get yourself out of that state and back into regulation. But the problem is we need different tools in each state. So it's really important to be able to identify which state you're in. So here's a metaphor that I like to help you kind of understand the process for selecting tools. So imagine that being regulated, having a regulated nervous system, being within your window of tolerance is like a perfectly warm bath. You're just chilling in the bathtub. It is the most perfect temperature. You're comfortable, you're cozy, you're relaxed. So hypoarousal, that's stuck on low, is like sitting in a bath that's too cold. You can sit there, but it's not particularly comfortable or relaxing. In order to have a relaxing bath, you need to add heat. You need to add energy. Hyperarousal is like a bath that is scalding hot. Maybe you try to get in, you dip your toes in, and you pull it back out. Or you get into the bath and you sit there, but you're kind of squirming because it's not comfortable. It's too hot. So in order to relax in that bath, you need to let off some steam. You need to let the bath cool down and release some energy so that you can then relax. So the goal of regulation is to figure out what needs to happen to make this bath the perfect temperature. Okay, so how do we make this practical? Let's start with hyperarousal, stuck on high. When you are stuck on high, your body is trying to get you to move. It is preparing you to take action. It's quite literally preparing your body to fight someone, to punch and kick and that sort of thing, or to run away. It is mobilizing you. The problem is if we don't actually act on these things, we don't actually take action, sometimes those feelings and those symptoms can just build and build and build until they become overwhelming. So one of the most common mistakes that people make in this state is they say, I need to calm down, which might be true, but they try to calm down by doing something calm. So they say, I'm super keyed up. I need to go and sit still and meditate because that's a calm activity, and then I'll feel more calm. Now, I just want to say that everybody's different, and this might work for some people in some instances. But a lot of times the very worst thing that you can do when you're really stuck on high is to force yourself to sit still. For a lot of people, forcing yourself to sit still, especially in doing something like meditation where you're kind of alone with your own thoughts, is the worst thing you could do. In a lot of cases, this just drives up all of those symptoms because your body is screaming at you, hey, you gotta move, there's a threat, we gotta do something. And then you're forcing yourself to sit still, and it's just this cognitive dissonance and usually leaves you feeling a lot more anxious. It's like these alarm bells that are trying to get you to do the thing are being ignored, and so they get louder and louder and louder. The anxiety and the stress just drives up and up and up. So what do we do instead? So the basic formula here that applies to every nervous system state is to meet yourself where you are and figure out what your body needs based on that state. And then you have to figure out which direction you're trying to move in. So if you're stuck on high, we're stuck up here in this high energy state. Our body is mobilizing us to take action. It's trying to get us to move, essentially. So the direction we want to move in is down toward the window of tolerance. We want to down-regulate. We want to calm down. But in order to do that, we first need to discharge the energy. We need to essentially complete the fight or flight cycle, right? If we're stuck on high, it's because we've gone into this fight or flight response, but the threat isn't something that we can imminently overcome, and so we get stuck here. So we need to kind of trick our body into thinking, hey, I have taken the action that you are prompting me to do to overcome the threat. Now I can relax. So the goal is to find a way to discharge that fight or flight energy, so to speak, in a healthy way. So often movement is key here. Often some kind of active movement-based practice is going to be the best starting point for a hyper-aroused state. Now what that looks like can be different for everybody, right? Everybody gravitates toward different things. It could be something as simple as a workout. It could be going for a walk. It could be pacing around your room. There are somatic exercises that are specifically designed to target this hyper-aroused state and help you come down quickly, and you'll find lots of those on my channel. If you stick around long enough, I have lots of those videos in the works. But it could be something like dancing, turning on some music and dancing. It could be shaking out your body, but some kind of active practice to help your mind and your body feel like you're moving through that stress. If you are not in a position where you can or want to move, we can actually do this through visualization. So our nervous system actually responds super well to imaginative visualization-y things, okay? So you can close your eyes and you can picture yourself on like this beautiful running path, and you can see yourself running in your mind's eye, even if you're sitting still. Or you could engage in something that's more active for the mind. So it could be a meditation practice, but maybe something that's more active, like a mantra meditation. Or maybe you could do a more active breathing exercise. Often singing and soma song practices can be helpful here as well. And depending on how you're feeling and what's working for your body, this could be like 30 seconds of an active practice, like 30 seconds of punching in the air, or this could be like an hour-long workout or anything in between. But once you've let off some steam, I encourage you to transition into some slower, calmer practices. Now, this does not necessarily mean you have to sit still, but it could be going from something more high energy to something like gentle movement, like yoga or tai chi, or more gentle swaying or rocking or that sort of thing. Or maybe you move toward meditation or a singing practice or something like that. You let off some steam and then you regulate down, doing something kind of calming and soothing until you feel like you're back in your window of tolerance. So stuck on low is kind of the opposite. With stuck on low, the motivation is not going to be there, okay? So inertia, getting started, is going to be the single hardest part. With stuck on low, we do want to add activation, right? We want to heat up the bathwater to get you into that window of tolerance, but you have to start small. it is going to feel nearly impossible in a lot of cases when you're stuck on low to do something super active to start. So one really nice way to start, and actually this can apply to any of the dysregulation states, is just some simple mindfulness using your 5 senses. Okay, so I'm not talking about like sitting still in mindfulness meditation, just focusing on your breath. If that works for you, that's great. But what I'm talking about here is like actively looking around your room, using your sense of sight if that's accessible to you, noticing all the colors and the textures, scanning your room for threats, kind of telling your system, hey, there's actually not a threat here, okay? Listening out for sounds, noticing smells or tastes, feeling things with your body, feeling your feet on the ground, and then maybe adding in some self-soothing. So I like to do this physically, finding some kind of position that is soothing to your body. So kind of giving yourself a hug or placing a hand over your heart or maybe swaying side to side or rocking. Maybe you turn on some music and you use that to regulate you. Maybe you kind of drop your heels to the beat. Okay, so anything that kind of gets you into a soothed position, we're kind of warming ourselves up with very gentle activation. And then we try to increase from there. So maybe that turns into some gentle stretching or self-massage, or maybe you feel okay to add on some soma song stuff, so like some humming or even some singing at that point. Often getting up and moving around is one of the best things that you can do, even if it's just, if you're seated, standing up, or if you can leave the room, go to a different room, if you can go for a walk, kind of getting a change of scenery. And we just add energy and add energy and add activation until we feel more regulated. Now, another way to add activation is through higher energy emotions. And what I mean by that is things like humor, playfulness, creativity, joy. So you could watch a funny video, you could do something silly, you could do something playful, do something creative. If you don't want to move your body, those are also good options. Now, in any of these states, we can also use music. So maybe picking a song that kind of matches your state to start with, so we can feel validated by listening to a song that kind of matches our state, and then we gradually change the playlist until it points us in the direction we want to go. So maybe you start with something super low and mellow and that kind of vibe when you're stuck on low, and then maybe you move your way towards something fun and high energy. And with this music, you can either just listen to it, you can move your body to the music, you can sing along, whatever makes sense to you. And finally, we have our freeze state. So the freeze state is super tricky because it's a blend of both. So that begs the inevitable question, do I start low or do I start high? And the unhelpful answer is it depends. Now, the best way to go about the freeze response is if you can really tune in and check in with yourself. A lot of times we have a kind of intuitive sense of what would feel good. So you can kind of check in with yourself about the different practices I mentioned. Does it feel right to you to start with something higher energy, something lower energy? Just kind of check in and see what feels right. But if you don't necessarily have access to that kind of intuitive sense of what feels right, the good news is there are some practices that can help regulate us from any state. So singing is both activating and relaxing, so that's a great one for a freeze state. Singing, humming, chanting, toning, those types of things. That kind of mindful orienting that I just mentioned, using your 5 senses to kind of ground yourself in the present moment, that's great in any state. Those kind of gentle movements of tapping your heels to some music or rocking or self-soothing motions, those can be great in any state as well. And if you're into breathing exercises, you could try a breath pattern where you're aiming for even ratio inhale to exhale. So if you were inhaling for a count of 4, you would also exhale for a count of 4. This is just a very grounding, equalizing, regulating breath pattern. For freeze, the goal is to pick something with a low barrier to entry, something that you could actually get yourself to do. And from there, once you get started, it often just becomes this intuitive process of figuring out what needs to happen next. So if you would like to put this into action, I encourage you to get out a piece of paper and write the categories hyperaroused, hypoaroused, and freeze, and start to write down some options of tools that you think might be effective for you in each of these states. That way, when you're in each of these states and you don't have super great access to your prefrontal cortex, you have already thought this through, and all you have to do is pull out your list. So if you'd like a little extra help, you'd like some more guidance, you'd like to dive a little deeper, I invite you to join my Substack community. So there is a free option. There's really no downside to joining at this point. And this week I'll be sharing some more practical tips and tools and practices for really getting into this. So I encourage you to check that out. Link is in the description below. So next week, we are going to explore why some people struggle with dysregulation more than others. And a lot of that comes down to that concept of the window of tolerance. Some people have smaller windows of tolerance than others. But the good news is we can change that. So if you want to learn more about that topic, please make sure you're subscribed so that you get that episode next week. And if you're ready to take the next steps to dive even deeper into all of this work, I'm in the process of creating a Soma Song for Mental Health course. And I'm really trying to tailor it to exactly what you guys want and need. So if you'd like to get on my waitlist and have some input into how I create this course for the first cohort, please feel free to join my waitlist. It is free and no obligation. And you will be the first to know of any happenings with this course. I hope to release it very soon. And as always, I love hearing from you. So if you have any questions or ideas of things you want to see more of on this channel, please feel free to leave me a comment. And otherwise, I'll see you next week.